Hi everyone, let's take a look at the Unit 2 Modeling Assessment practice. Please take a look at the practice problems, do them, and then come back and watch the rest of this video. Welcome back. So let's take a look at some of these problems. So the first problem says, if three pattern blocks together represent 2 1/4, use pattern blocks to represent 1. So here are our three red pattern blocks. So that represents 2 1/4. Well, 2 1/4 is a mixed number, and if we rewrite it as an improper fraction, we would get 9/4. Well, 9/4 means that we have 9 equal pieces, and each piece represents 1/4. So we only have 3 pieces here, so we need to play around and find a block that when we put 9 of them together, it looks like the 3 red blocks. So I played around and I found that these little green triangles would represent the 3 red hexagons. And if you look at it, there's 9 of these triangles, so each triangle would represent 1/4. So we have 9 pieces, and each piece represents 1/4. So it wants us to represent 1. So this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. So these 4 green triangles would represent 1. Okay, so that's that problem. Part B says if 1 yellow and 1 blue pattern block together represents 2/3, use pattern blocks to represent 1 1/4. Well, this is 2/3. Well, 2/3 means we have 2 equal pieces and each piece is worth 1/3. Well, we have 2 pieces here, but they're not the same. So we need to somehow figure out how to come up with 2 equal pieces or 2 equal groups. So what I did was I took the blue pattern blocks and I put 3 of them together, and that would be the same thing as the yellow hexagon. So I replaced the yellow hexagon with those 3 blue rhombuses. And so this still represents 2/3. So we can split this into 2 equal groups, and each group would represent 1/3. So if this is 1/3, this is 1/3, this would be another third. So this would represent 1, but we want 1 1/4. So if I just put these together like this, that still represents 1. So we want 1/4 of this. So we somehow want to cut this like into 4 equal pieces. Well, if I take the red hexagons, then I can, I'm sorry, those are trapezoids. So if I take the red trapezoids, I can see that each one would represent 1/4. Because the whole thing is 1, I split it into 4 equal parts. So each one of these is 1/4. So this would represent 1, this would be 1/4, so this would be 1 1/4. Hi everyone, let's talk about the next problem that deals with the Cuisenaire rods. So in order to do that, we could use those little pieces of paper that, you know, if you print it out and cut out the little shapes, you could have the little pieces of paper to use. But I found this program to be a lot more useful. It's mathplayground.com and then /mathbars.html. So what we have here for part C, it says if one orange rod and one yellow rod together. So I'm going to use this slider bar to find the orange one, which is the biggest one. So if one orange one and then one yellow. So find the yellow, whoop, there it is. Put them together, and that's supposed to represent 1 2/3. Well, 1 2/3 is a mixed number. If you change that into an improper fraction, you get 5/3. So the length of these two bars together is 5/3. In other words, it can be replaced with 5 equal pieces that represent 1/3. So 5 equal pieces of size 1/3. So we just need to play around with this and figure out which one will work. I don't know if we try the purple one. There's 1, 2, oh, I think this is way too big. 3, yep, they're too big. So I'm just going to put them down here and get them out of the way. Okay, so that's too big, so let's go to the next smaller one. So let's try the lime green. Keep in mind, we're trying to find 5 equal pieces, and each of those 5 equal pieces would be 1/3 in size. And look at this, this works. So each of these lime green is 1/3, and it wants us to represent 1. So this would be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. So 3/3 is the same thing as 1. So 1 is equal to 3 of the lime green. Okay, the next problem, part D, says if one orange rod and one brown rod together. So we need an orange one and a brown one. Okay, so an orange rod and a brown rod together represent 1 1/5. Use color rods to represent 2/3. Well, 1 1/5 is a mixed number. As an improper fraction, that's 6/5. So I need to find 6 equal pieces that will represent the orange and the brown. So let's try the lime green again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it looks like it's going to work. 6. Yay. Okay, so we have 6 equal pieces. So each of those equal pieces will represent 1/5. And so if we put 5 of them out here, that would be equal to 1. Okay, so there's 1. But the problem doesn't want us to represent 1. It wants us to represent 2/3. Well, 2/3 means we have 2 equal pieces when each piece is 1/3. Well, these 5 lime green ones together represent 1. So we need to cut this into thirds. So we have thirds in order to come up with 2/3. Well, let's see here. What do you think? Purple, yellow, the dark green? Let's try the yellow. It's just a pure guess. And so, yeah, there we go. So we have 3 equal pieces that put together is equal to 1. So each of these yellow pieces are 1/3, and it wants us to represent 2/3. So there's 1/3 and there's 2/3. So 2 yellow rods is equal to 2/3. Let's take a look at part E. It says, if a set of 16 bears represents 2 2/3, show a set of bears that represent 1. So here's 17 tiles. I don't have little bears around my house. You could use pennies, little pieces of paper, whatever you can find. So I use these like little tiles. So here's 16 of them, and this represents 2 2/3. Well, 2 2/3 is a mixed number. As an improper fraction, that's 8/3. So this represents 8 groups, and each group is size 1/3. So we need to split these into 8 groups. So there's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups. So each of the 8 groups would have 2 tiles. And let's see, it asks us to show a set of bears that represents 1. Well, if each one of these is a third, because remember this was 8/3, well, 1 would be 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. And so this would be 1 group. Okay, so that's part E. Oh, and part E has 6 bears. So part F says if a set of 12 bears represents 3 halves. So let's see, there's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's my 12 bears. And that represents 3 halves. Well, 3 halves is 3 groups, and each group is size 1/2. So let's split these into 3 groups. Okay, so each group would have 4 bears in it, and each group is size 1/2. So 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves. Okay, so that means this is 1/2 and another half is 1. So that means 2, 4, 6, 8 bears represents 1. So 8 bears is 1. Here's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 2, but it wants 2 3/4. Well, let's come up with another whole number. So another 8 bears. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, well that's really what we have here is 3. We don't want 3, we want 2 3/4. So we need to find 3/4 of this. Well, if this is one whole, what we want to do is break this down into 4 equal groups. So each group is 1/4. So 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups. So each group is size 1/4. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. 3/4 is what we want. So I'm going to get rid of this other 4th. And so this would be 1, 2, 3/4 for a total of 8, and 8 is 16, and 6 more is 22. So the answer would be 22 bears.